This interview is being conducted for St John Scotland, 75 years of making a difference. My name is Dr Sue Morrison and the respondent is Margaret Balfour. This is the 3rd of May and the interview is taking place in Margaret's home. Thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed for this project, Margaret.
All right.
For the record, would you please confirm your name?
Margaret Euphemia Bremner Balfour. Oh,
Thank
I'll
you.
give you it properly.
And what is your age or just your year of birth?
I was born in 1944 in the September. So I'm 76.
Thank you.
Just I'm going to work that out now.
Where were you brought up, Margaret?
I was brought up in Blackhall, Edinburgh, all my life.
And you still live here?
And I still live here.
Could we start with a wee bit about your family background?
I first became involved with St John through my mother, who was chairman of the Blackhall Townswomen's Guild, who were having a handicraft exhibition, and she got the Lady Provost to come along and view it, who was Lady Banks, who my mother had worked with in Patrick Thompson's when they first started work. And she said to my mother, how about you coming to help with St John's autumn fair that we're having in the Edinburgh suite of the assembly rooms. And that's how we first got involved, and she was to run a bottle stall, and she got the ladies to donate bottles, and so I ended up with them behind the settee sorting them all out before she was going to this fair. And that was either 57, autumn 57 or 58. I can't just remember, 1958. And so it took off from there, and unfortunately my mother became ill, but Lady Banks said to my aunt, why don't you come along and help? And she started off helping on a cake stall. As I say, I was just still a teenager at school. And then when I finished school in 1962, I was helping with the coffees at the autumn fair, and it snowballed from there.
How old were you at that point?
I would be mid-teens. And that but then I would be 18 when I started helping with the coffees. And that, you know.
Just to go back to your mum, what kind of involvement did she have? Anything else?
She only helped with the stall. That was the only involvement that she had, and that because she became ill after that, so that she wasn't able to help. But that started the ball rolling with us, and then my aunt. She was asked to take help on a cake stall, which would probably be in about 1959, 1960.
And these events were to raise funds?
Raising funds for the home that we had at Lennox Row in Edinburgh, and also the hospice that we had at Carbery, in the grounds of Carbery Towers.
Could you tell me a bit about those?
They were, actual fact, the homes were, although they were residential, the original idea was for people coming out of hospital and needed a bit of convalescing before they maybe go home to their own house, or if they stayed with, it was supposed to be a maximum of 6 weeks that we had the people there for. Sometimes it's stretched, it could be less, it could be more. Or if an elderly relative stayed with relations and they needed a break, they could go in there for like a little holiday. And that we had the two homes. We eventually, I was one time down at Carbery, we went because we had raised funds, and they built like a conservatory summer house onto it, and we eventually probably the health service changed, and we didn't need the home the same, but we still had the one at Trinity in Edinburgh, but it And we had, an outside fire escape and what haven't you in for there, and we had a summer garden party and that, and one of the actresses from Take the High Road came and opened it, but then new fire regulations came in and we had to give up the house there. So we were sort of in limbo in Edinburgh as to what we were going to do, because we still had the capital from the house, and there was a spell when we didn't have any property for running and that, so we got this, we looked at various different properties and that, and we got the house at Cramond, and we ran it jointly with Alzheimer's Association Scotland. I don't know what their proper name is, and that was really sort of for the carers to have a break, but it didn't work out that way. It ended up with actual fact patients coming with their carers, but we only could take 9 people. It wasn't that big a house, so that was what we processed from the 2 homes that we had. So that's what we were originally helping to raise funds for. And then also we always had the eye hospital in Jerusalem that we were raising money for. And then we started off with another form of fundraising, was our charity shop and in Stockbridge, and we were the second charity shop there. The lifeboat was the first and we were the second one, and we ran that for well over 30 years, and that, and then it became a bookshop when we gave up, because we got so much competition then with other charity shops opening up, and we were up some stairs, and so it wasn't for so much fortuitous, because people would go just could walk in just on the level. It was so we decided to give it up. Well, I in actual fact was told by the doctor I had to slow down, because by this time I was convener of the shop, convener of the house at Cramond, Edinburgh chairman, and the doctor said I had to slow down, and so it became a bookshop. And then we got to the stage of that it wasn't, this was all manned by volunteers, and so that we had to ended up giving the bookshop up and letting the property. My aunt helped once a fortnight in the charity shop, and I wasn't, because I was working, I wasn't able to help in the shop, although I helped on the committee, but once my daughter started school, I was able to go in and help in the shop for just a morning. Unfortunately, we didn't have the shop open 7 days a week, because it was all manned by volunteers. Some people just did the morning, some people did the afternoon. And then we gradually extended it. I worked longer hours, helping on a Thursday and a Friday, and then we opened on a Saturday as well. We tried it before Christmas, and one night we opened it for members, but we didn't really get much response from that. So latterly I ended up working in the shop Thursday, Friday and Saturday. We had 2 girls who did their service for the Duke of Edinburgh Award with helping in the shop, so that we were helping another organisation as well. And what we also did was, with our autumn fairs that we had a shop stall. So, but unfortunately, we didn't have sufficient bric-a-brac handing in. We had to buy in stock as well, and so we would take some of that up to the fair and so it was a case of packing it all up and then unpacking it and packing it back up again. And we also had one of our members was involved with an interior design shop, and he would have rolls of material, and what wasn't sold at the fair would come down to the shop, so we're working with that. And I mean, we had everything. We did have clothes at one time in the shop, and then we got the donations that we got. I said, no, I am not dealing with Granny's filthy underwear. So we stopped doing the clothes, but we did bric-a-brac and books and the new stuff that we had. And then I say we had new goods for Christmas and that we got wholesale and that, you know. We also did our own St John merchandising as well, which we had got done for when we did for the 50th anniversary, the Highland Show. So we sold and supplied the other branches as well with that from the shop. We had a very successful 30th birthday party for the volunteers from the shop, which we were able to hold at the house at Cramond in 1999. So that and there is pictures. I've got pictures there of the people all who helped at that. We got a birthday cake and that, you know. We also did, especially with having the house at Carbery. We used to, there was 2 carloads would go down to Musselburgh to do house-to-house collections for a week, and also on the street on the Saturday, because it wasn't such a hard sell in Musselburgh because people knew about the home, a local home, that we were able to get, you know, quite good donation. But when we did the flag collecting in Edinburgh, it was a hard sell because it wasn't known. Oh, everybody would say, oh, St John Ambulance, but they didn't know anything else about St John in Scotland. And then after their last collecting was once we got the defibrillators and started at can collecting at Waverley Station or at the stations and that, because you had something to show them. And that this is what I think, if people could see something, it was easier to raise money and that, you know. But I mean, apart from that, I mean, I was on the committee, both the association committee and then on the order committee, and did that, and then finished as chairman of the committee. And then when I said I would only do 3 years because of my health, I became the president. How about that? Any more information? What else can I tell you? Represented St John at different events. We presented different minibuses and gone down to the border. Well, done it in Edinburgh, gone down to the borders to do it. And also they did money for the mountain rescue team, and that, because of the minibuses for that, down to, because we started the St John East of Scotland branch, we used to go down to the borders, down to Peebles for the talking newspapers involved there, down to Duns for the show, their annual show, and had a stall there, down to Melrose to try and get more interest in other parts of the borders. I have been down to London several occasions. We went down to I'm trying to think what it was, and I think it was the 900th anniversary service in St Paul's Cathedral, and down at some of the big investitures in London, apart from my own one in London, down to another couple as well, representing Scotland.
Impressive. Could you tell me a bit more about the talking newspapers?
Oh, that was just a charity that we supported as donations, and that we didn't really we weren't involved with it anything. So they would put they might put something into the newspaper to say that they had got money from St John, but we weren't involved in it as such. It was just a charity that we donated to, and that. The other thing that we were involved with is the barges at Ratho for the disabled. With the Seagull Trust are involved in that, but we have supplied barges and also support the running costs of them, which they take disabled people for trips on the Union Canal.
Is that a kind of daily thing, or do they stay over?
It's just a either a morning or afternoon cruise on the canal, and that's all manned by volunteers too.
What do you think about the contribution of volunteers to St John Scotland?
Well, there's now more younger people involved because the original ones are all getting older, and with now doing the defibrillators and a lot of CPR, they're getting a lot of younger people in to help and go to schools and that, and demonstrating that. So that is getting younger people more involved now and that.
Could you kind of talk me through your promotions since you started?
I first the date. I was originally just a member, and then I was able to take on a life membership, which I've just got because I've got the receipt for it, and it's 1968, February 68. And then because of the different I was involved in, I was made but one of the youngest serving sisters. We're called serving sisters. That was the first step on the ladder, and then it fell in line with the other order, not other order. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, the Queen's the Queen's Honours List. MBE, CBE. Well, it fell in line with that and stopped the serving sisters, and you became a member. So it became an MCJ as
MBE? MBE?
Yeah, but it's these honours. It then fell in line with the same there and stopped dropping off the serving sister, serving brother, and it became a member. And then having done after 5 years for just all the work that I did in helping and that, I progressed to officer, then to commander, and then eventually was made a dame in the order. And I was one of the youngest for that. I think I'm probably still the youngest involved in that. Well, maybe not quite, but I'm not far short of being the youngest that was made a dame.
Margaret, could you just tell me what age you were when you became a dame?
I was 54 when I became a dame.
Thank you.
And my daughter, when she was first made a serving sister, she was only 18, and because she had helped me with all the different things I was doing and that, and because also we organised events at Cramond, strawberry teas and coffee mornings and that, and ended up having in our own garden after we gave up the house at Cramond, because he said, we want a strawberry tea, so it was organised here. So I've done that as well. I forgot about that. I just remembered that just now.
Could you tell me about your daughter's involvement?
Well, because I was involved, both I ended up with my daughter and then my husband becoming involved, and just through helping me. And Susan started off with helping in the shop, especially when we were doing the Saturday, and just unpacking goods that came in or displaying them. And this friend who had the shop that did the material, with him having a shop, he was able to tell Susan how to display things on the shelf, and so she got a flair for that and for doing the window. And because we had a shop window, so we were able to display goods and that. And so she just progressed and eventually became a commander through the work with helping me, and then becoming on the committee, and the secretary for the Edinburgh branch. She was also involved through Priory on the Youth Engagement Committee and also the fundraising committee. We helped at Priory with putting out letters and that stuff. With the letters that was going out to all our members, and she used to help on that. I've helped at different things in Priory for meetings and that. Susan also did the when there was the big Grand Council here. She ended up as a what do you call the person? A guide for the ladies, because the men were all at the meetings, and Susan went round to the Britannia and different places that she took the lady guests and that. So she did a lot as well. Because she had to take holidays to do that, because by that time she was working and that. So that
You mentioned your husband then.
Yes, my husband, he was a case of helping me, and then ended up as treasurer for the house at Cramond that we had there, and so that he got involved with just through helping me, and he became a commander as well. And one of the years they both got, I think my daughter got her officer and he got his commander, and it was it was the right family affair and that, and it just through me that they got involved.
You mentioned quite a few different committees.
Yes.
Could you just kind of talk me through them, please?
The committee started off as the St John Association, and I was on that committee. There was two committees then. There was the Association Committee, which really did the fundraising, and then there was the Order Committee, which sort of like the having the house and the houses and that. And then it got to the stage it was because difficult getting members to go on to committee. We amalgamated the two committees, so we had more or less the same people that were on both, and so we were attending to both. Everybody was doing the same thing, and then we ended up eventually splitting again back to a fundraising committee and the St John committee for Edinburgh, and that. That was and then we had there was a very small committee sort of did the house at Cramond, the meeting with Alzheimer's, when we had the Alzheimer's meeting, and then after we gave up with the Alzheimer's, because we were having the house sitting over the winter empty and we just couldn't afford that. So that was in actual fact when Dr. Calvert, who you're going to see his wife, at one of his meetings, that was all the areas in Scotland, that we were looking for a project for the house, and he said, well look, the people who are coming up from Dumfries and Galloway to the Western for cancer treatment, they were needing accommodation, so we were able to accommodate that. So there was one or two of us involved in that, and then I was involved then with meetings with the Western General as to how we could progress there, and then I was dealing with the housekeeper that we had at Cramond.
I think you mentioned a youth committee.
Yes, that was Susan was involved in that, and that was one of Priory's ones, and that they were trying to get involved with youth in that, and unfortunately through change of personnel that sort of just folded.
Do you think that's something that would be useful to bring back?
Well, there's been talk about this various times in St John Cadets, because we used it one time at Denny. I don't know whether Ian Wallace maybe mentioned that there was youth cadets at Denny, and there was talk about even that. But then a lot more of that was more onto the first aid side, which St John really, because of it, we had the St Andrew's ambulance and that we didn't get involved in the first aid side of it, so that it's very difficult to. It's still, although there's not the same agreement, it was like 100-year type agreement, but it's still a delicate path, I would say, between about doing the first aid. We're not quite so bad with the defibrillators, CPR. We can get, because they didn't do anything like that, but it was still. I still feel it's a delicate path that we're on about first aid, which the cadets were doing, and that. The other thing that we did was organise social events. That we had different. We have a quiz night or social events that we had with speakers, talking different subjects. So that would come up through at our committee meetings as to what we were going to arrange to have, and who we could get to come, and who would do, what catering we would have. That came up at our meetings, and also allocation of funds, because although we had the home that we had, we also gave money for the running of the barge at Ratho, and also we gave money annually to the eye hospital in Jerusalem. And we had we had different talks. So we had we had a trip to the city chambers. We had a trip around the Register House, and there was a tea. One of the auction houses in George Street had. It was talked about like a tea party, but not drinking tea as such, but like the story of tea and the China and that coming from China, and that different the Edinburgh archives, different things, different topics of interest in that, and we always had usually a trip on the barge. Annually, and that I mean, we were all the different social side of things, as well as not just that we did.
Who was invited to these events?
Our members. Letters would go out to our members, and that we had 200 members, and or might be more. I can't tell you off. It was all went out to our members, and that, and we did a series of talks on a Saturday to see if it would help people who were working. Did that. We also did a evaluation day with one of the auction houses. People were asked to bring along items. I've represented. We. We're at the Lord Provost's garden party, which he did for voluntary organisations. We were as representative of St John in that, and also a presentation of a volunteer award on the barge. Or represented on that. And then all these things would come up at meetings, and that, just different things, what we were going to do. And that, This is the dame, my dame one, miniature, and this is the big one that goes on. I haven't got. The only thing, you'd have to get a photograph of the one with the gown on, and that. Which this I had to go to London to receive from the Duke of Gloucester. The rest are done with our aunt. Unfortunately, this postponed because of the COVID for last year and this year, an annual festival for when the ordinary medals are presented and that. But this is also my service medal, all the year's service that I've done. I haven't, in actual fact, completed. There should be more bars on this. There should be, I think, a silver bar, but I haven't gone and asked for any more. I felt I had and that, you know, that. I think this is her one. That is an officer medal, because that was originally the small bow, but they changed it and went on to the larger bow, the same as what you would get if you got an MBE that. They've gone to the same as that.
And that one's Susan's.
These are Susan, yeah, because mine is. I don't know where mine is. This is her commander one, which I think is just slightly bigger, but the same design. See, just the difference. But you see, mine was like this. It changed the style of the medals because I only had the small ribbon. That they've gone to the big ribbon. And this is her service medal, which is just a blank. It hasn't got the bars on it. Mm-hmm.
She's a youngster.
She's a youngster. So that, but it's just to see. But they did change them. The men's medals were slightly different. I'm probably the one that's got all the collection of medals. It was one of my husband's medals. I don't know which one that is. That could be.
So is the men's ribbon different to the females?
Yes. You see, that's Ian's officer, but I don't think that's Ian's officer's one at all, because it wouldn't be a ribbon like that. Oh, I can't understand. But this is his commander one, which goes round his neck. They go round their necks. That's why I brought this. I mean, I have still kept all the medals and that. But my original, I don't know where I put it, it's somewhere safe, was a solid round medal. Not the star, like these. It was a round circle. Silver back and the black, and then the silver on the front. Unfortunately, I couldn't lay my hands on it. This is taken at Dunblane when Ian got his serving brother. Well, and I've got, and Susan's she's got a rugby badge. That was taken after a presentation at Dunblane, and this was a presentation, Edinburgh Festival, which is with all the people who were given their awards, the different grades. It's classed now as members, officers and commanders.
What was the order like when you joined it?
the order was very male dominated. And then even the festivals, it was quite some time before the ladies were even asked to help at the festival, and that was by handing out the order of service. But previously to that, the ladies weren't asked to help with that. But then it got to the stage it was difficult probably to get sufficient men to cover it, that they had to ask the ladies to help.
How did you feel back then?
Didn't bother me. And that, you know, but I just thought, I mean, the ladies were doing a lot of work and weren't getting the recognition for it. And then that's why I really felt it was an honour when I was asked to be chairman.
So how do you think, and why do you think the order has changed as years have gone by?
I think just the way society has changed, that people have realised that there's more equal opportunities now. I think that they had to move with the times, and that it was sort of businessmen probably that originally started it, resurrected it in Scotland, and so eventually probably wives that got involved with that, especially running the fair, like a cake stall, and that it was the ladies that did that, you know, that and I thought gradually from there. Mm-hmm.
How easy was it to get volunteers back then?
Very difficult. Very difficult. I mean, it was a case of, it was, well, as I say, like with me, a family, it helped, and that, you know, that was how a lot of it was got, you know, or just the members, and it was word of mouth that you told people and that, and how you would get people to come along, and you sold tickets for a coffee morning or a fair or whatever, and that, and it was you sort of tried then to get, if people were interested, you know, if they would join and that.
Would you say that it's still difficult to recruit volunteers?
Yes. Because people are now that there's so much other interests that to do to get people to volunteer and that, you know. I mean, having been involved through the Scouts as well, I mean that was difficult, and that, and Susan helped with the brownies and that, and I mean that it was very difficult to get people to help. And that,
What do you think could be done to involve more volunteers looking forward?
I think that's a very difficult question, because I mean people have got so many other interests now that. There's just so much competition and that, you know, and I mean we are a small organisation really. I mean people do. I mean although it's a worldwide organisation, it's still fairly small, and people have got their own pet choices that they will support.
Do you think St John Scotland is widely known in Scotland?
No. I mean, we've supported the mountain rescue, and even you see that you don't even get the recognition even on that, you know, which I feel is it was a very worthwhile thing in that. And I remember going one of the presentations, the last presentation I went to, that, and the borders and that, and they say, well, people think, oh, mountain rescue, it's not just mountain rescue, we're doing river rescues and that, and they cover right up until even to the Forth, the Pentland Hills and Arthur Seat and that they'll come, and that we're not just doing mountains, we're doing rivers as well. It is and I feel that could get more recognition, I think, but that's a localised thing that you'll get the help. And I know I was up at Ballater, and there was a talk by the Braemar mountain rescue guy, and he says that we were very grateful for the support that we had from St John, but then I thought there was only a few people heard, oh, what's this, and people still think of St John as St John Ambulance, and that is a stigma that we have the problem with too, and that,
Because in Scotland you don't actually do the ambulance work.
Mm.
Could you just tell me a bit about that relationship with St Andrew's Ambulance?
Well, St Andrew's was on the go. John's Ambulance was always in England, and St John Ambulance was in Scotland, and then that and there was the agreement that we wouldn't do ambulance work, and that. But apparently that agreement is has ceased now because it was for so many years. And that's when we started on about with the defibrillators and that we were able to do that, but we weren't really doing training in first aid or anything like that, But I know that they were toiling for people to help them, so that it became that it wasn't quite so. What would be the word I would use? That there wasn't the same niggle as there had been before, because personnel were changing in that too, and really the way things were, just the way life was moving on and that,
Do you think that St John Scotland has been fairly insular in the past?
Very difficult to say. I mean, each area had sort of their own little thing that they were doing, and that's how we sort of tried to get a wider field. And I think when we went on to sort of the mountain rescue and that, but it's still. I mean, we were doing the patient transport up in Dundee, and that to try to get different things. I mean, with the nursing home in Aberdeen, and that everybody was sort of doing their own thing, and I think that too that there's no national, because we always talked about a national project, and really it never really took off. The defibrillators is sort of more now as a national thing, but I mean it did start in Edinburgh, and that, but it's very difficult to say. And I mean trying things, even to get, it's very difficult to get people, to have. We did do gatherings, well, called them gatherings, but I mean to get people to come from Inverness, or people to come from Aberdeen up from the Fries Galloway and that's Stranraer, to have something. We've had it twice in Grangemouth, or Falkirk area, and that very difficult to get things, and that it's a very difficult, because I mean people say, St John, what's St John? What do you do? Type of thing. And I mean, people still say that to me yet, and I thought, yes, well, we have been on the go for, our 50th anniversary, we had a service for that, organised that. But I mean, it's still, people sort of look at me as much as if you've got horns coming out your head and that, what have you been, what do you do, It's not so bad if you've got just a local thing. I mean, West Lothian are very good, because they're a small community, whereas we're in the city and there's so many other things in the city. It's very difficult. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that perhaps St John Scotland should perhaps promote a more national identity then?
That's what's needed, yeah. But you see, people are also up in arms again about when we've got the eye hospital in Jerusalem. That is quite a bone of contention, why send our money there when we're toiling with our own eye hospital in Edinburgh. Also supporting Malawi, project out there that it's very difficult for a national thing in that, you know, that people are strange. There's no doubt about it and that, you know, and if you're collecting a can and even if and just walk by, I mean, you know, that it's very difficult. You're giving up your time and effort and that, you know, and it's a very difficult. I just don't know what we could do. Really, I mean, having been involved in it for so long, it just, I just don't know.
Could you tell me your favourite memory of being involved with St John Scotland?
Favourite memory? It's probably I've had quite a few. I think my most enjoyable time was when we spent 4 days, 2 years running at the Highland Show, and everybody laughs at me and my blue wellies, but it was the only thing I could bring. And that, I mean, I must admit, it was hard work, but it was very enjoyable. And having the honour of being able to go to London to go to the Queen's birthday parade, and able to shout to Peter Phillips and say what a wonderful job he had organised, and that, you know, that I spoke to Princess Anne's husband, and that, because the whole family sort of split into the different groups in the Mall, and I thought, well, that was another. I mean, okay, we had to pay for our own tickets for that, but I mean, it was an honour to be there representing Scotland, and that, you know, even the opening of Priory with Princess Anne. I mean, that was another thing I was at. Different things, and that I've done. Just I've enjoyed. I must admit, over the year I have enjoyed it, and I say, well, very difficult to say what has been. I mean, the honour that I got. I mean, that really touched me, because I just had come back from a holiday up in Oban, and got a letter, and I always remember Ian brought me in here, and said he had sort of opened all the mail. He said, "I think you better look at that." And that, of course, I just broke down, because being so young to get the honour of a dame, that was just the icing on the cake for me, really. And I thought, well, I thought, oh, getting this, and I thought, well, no, I had worked for it. I mean, I never did brag about anything I did, but I thought I had worked for that, you know. And then when the doctor eventually told me I had to slow down, that was the end. Oh, you know, because I've always been on the go, you know. So, and I thought, well, I've accomplished most things, you know, being on the different committees and that, you know. And representing Edinburgh on the Area Affairs Committee, you know, it was went to different places for that meeting and that, you know, it was good. I liked when I was able to go to different places and that, you know. The start of the border meeting, we opened up the branch down the borders and that, being at that too. Mm.
What are your hopes for the future of St John Scotland?
I just hope it continues. I worry about that at times. You know, I think of all the work that I've done, and just to hope that really that it continues, because at times I do have doubts about it. Mm-hmm.
If you were able to talk directly to people considering volunteering, and you would like them to work with St John Scotland, what would you say to them?
The problem is that, I mean, I have gone and given talks about St John and that. What can they do? That is really, you've got to have something to give them an interest. They have to have something specific to do, otherwise they lose interest and you lose them. And that has been our trouble, not having anything specific for them over the years. And that, I mean, I feel we're quite lucky. I mean, COVID has come at such a bad time for us, for everybody, and that I feel that we were getting on fine with the CPR and that, and COVID has just really finished us on that, you know. I really feel that if we've got something specific for the people to do, then we stand a chance. But you've got to give them something to do.
Margaret, thank you very much for being interviewed today. I appreciate you sharing your memories with me.
Thank you very much for coming through to the house.
You're welcome.
Welcome.